Yes, folks, it's Thursday. It's 2 p.m. Pacific. I'm Fred McMurray, which means, mercifully, this must finally be
Pillars of franchising. Pillars of franchising.
And we're back. Hi, I'm Fred McMurray with my co-host, Kristin. We'll be bringing Ray and friends on real soon. Kristin, how are we doing today?
We're doing great. We're getting dumped on with another 7 inches of Ray's favorite frozen water.
You guys can have it. I don't miss it. I try to. It looks pretty, but I much prefer it being pretty a ways away.
Yeah, I did one of those stupid Facebook things the other day where it says, oh, take the survey and see where you're meant to live. And my girlfriend did it and she got like Hawaii. And I thought, oh, this will be fun. I'm just dying to see. And I don't usually believe in any of those things anyway, but I took it and I'll be damned, it came up Illinois. Yeah, I hear you laughing from here, Ray. I can hear you laughing all the way from Aurora. And I said, this is exactly the opposite of what I was going for. So I've decided that those Facebook things, they're all a bunch of garbage. So I'm over it.
So how long did it take you to figure that out, that Facebook things were garbage?
Well, I wondered, does it matter how long I wait before I hit the button? And what's the algorithm behind it? Does it matter how quickly I push the buttons, which buttons I push next? That put in your first letter of your last name and then the month you were born. What are the chances, right? It's a bunch of garbage. Anyway, hey, you want to know what's going on with our mentor program?
Yeah, why don't you tell us that and tell us what we're going to see here in the mentor segment today.
Oh my goodness. So our mentor, Mario, is doing awesome. As usual, I always say that. Mentee. I'm sorry. Yeah, the mentor. That's me. And that's David. And that's Ray. But Mario is doing awesome. I always say that. But when you guys finally get to meet him and you finally get to hear him on the air, you'll understand why I say that. Because he's a supercharged, energetic, go-get-him personality. And he really is awesome. So as we go through the process, normally I tell you about all the accomplishments we've made, all the different processes that we've gone through. But today, I decided to take you through something a little bit different because as we've done these kind of segments, what we realized is that there are a few steps along the way that really require deeper dives. And so as Mario and I were chatting the other day, we were comparing the definition of territories. And a lot of franchises, irrespective of what vertical you go with. So let's say it's a restaurant, a quick serve restaurant, and Dave's going to come on and join me here in a second because I want him to be involved in that too, because that's more of his segment, food anyway. And then you do a service business. A lot of different franchises talk about territories or licensed areas or what have you. But everybody defines it differently. And even if you take, the business Ray and I are in, we have a protected territory. And a lot of them, our business in particular, says they protect it by, help me, Ray, I'm hitting a wall here. It's not carrier routes.
It's not codes.
It's census tracts. Census tracts.
Census tracts.
Thank you.
The voice from beyond.
Saves me again. Thank you. So you have census tracts, you have zip codes, and then they like to throw on top household values or qualified household incomes, right? And so Mario and I were talking a little bit about that, and then we discovered that there's really a lot more to determine what qualifies a household than just those 3 criteria. So they sell you a territory, or let's just call that, you draw a line in the sand and say, here's your area, right? And then of that area, we sort through to determine how much these houses are worth and how much do these people make. But what does that really tell you? It doesn't really tell you enough, right? So I want to get a little bit deeper into that. But before we do, Fred, can you bring David into the room quickly? Because I'd like to ask him, when we talk about restaurants, how do they sell you a protected area, if you will, David?
But first, wait. You cannot answer that question yet first. Otherwise, all tradition would be wiped out. You know what questions he must be asked first before he can answer your other question. I'm sorry.
Okay, David.
Thank you.
Where are you? And what's the weather like?
Well, today I am in
I don't really want to know, because I know, but you have to answer.
That's why I'm hesitating to say it. But I am currently in Destin, Florida. Actually Miramar Beach, Florida, so neighboring county. So, and this might make you happy. It's overcast. It's in the low 60s and it's windy, so it's not real warm. It's not real sunny. It's a little brisk today, but it isn't 20s and snowing, so we'll take it.
If you could mix up the 6 and the 0, then I'd feel bad for you. That's
fair.
But I know you're from Cleveland, so I don't feel that.
Put it this way, I didn't see the wind chill in the weather report, so
that's okay. We're not going to discredit you for being in a nice place. You worked hard to get there.
There you go.
So tell us, David, I really want to know, because you're not really in my segment of business, nor Ray's. So what is somebody to expect if they're looking at buying a restaurant or a quick serve restaurant type of business?
Wow, that's really a huge question, because and it depends on which segment of the restaurant industry, right? So casual restaurants, a little bit different, their market radius may be a little bit larger, quick service a little bit smaller, but I don't have a number to back this up, but I would venture to say the biggest bone of contention between franchisors and franchisees, and possibly lawsuits, right? Lawsuits, but really center around overcrowding or cannibalization, of a market, or a market being overbuilt. And I think that happens, again, I'm not going to say it happens more in the restaurant industry or the quick service industry, the food industry in general, but it happens at least those are, some of the biggest lawsuits and the biggest issues and the biggest, complaints in that industry are from that, right? I can think of so many other things, so many companies that went through that. So to break it down, it's real simple. In a casual restaurant, they're defined typically, at least the ones I've been exposed to, typically not necessarily by, kind of can switch. Some are by a mile radius, some are by a population radius, but they get tricky because of the density of the areas. So if you have somebody that's maybe you have 2 locations 20 minutes apart, that could be a lot different 20 minutes apart from, say, 2 40,000 population trade radius, as opposed to one that's 150,000 people, and then the next one's 20 minutes apart because they got some rural roads. So it's almost taken by case basis, and it should be spelled out in the FDB, but it's still worthy of discussion, because when you get to the QSR and some of the smaller ones, there's a different philosophy, and it's really kind of the Starbucks model, so to speak. A lot of them figure, it's convenience, so they want to put as many as they can in an area. But where the problem comes in either one is where there's that overlap of the trade market. And how do you define that? Because nobody just sits there in the middle and says, I go left or I go right. I mean, they go.
Did we lose him?
I think we lost him.
Okay, well, I'm sure we'll get him back. But I can tell you the one thing that if he pops back on, the one thing that David and I talked about earlier today, to his point exactly, is you have to also look at what you're putting in there. And the example that he and I talked about earlier is, let's take Starbucks, right? Starbucks is kind of an upper echelon brand, and it's not to put any other brand down, right? But it's a $5, $6 a cup of coffee type of brand, and Dunkin's might be a $4 cup of coffee brand. And so if you take a Starbucks and you put it somewhere, my bad, you put it somewhere just because it's a dense population, but let's say it's a lower to mid income, highly populated apartment condo area. Yeah, you have the bodies, but those people probably aren't going to buy a $6 cup of coffee. They're more likely to buy a $4 cup of coffee, right? So that's where you get into this. Well, is it really, oh, look, I'm going to straighten that up. Is it really the right location? You can't just say, oh, it's a dense population, let's put it there, because it's not the right marketplace. And that's kind of where Mario went with the particular segment of business he's looking at right now. The issue we found there is that it wasn't just about household value. It wasn't just about the income these folks were making. In his particular area in Southern California, the particular brand and segment he's looking for said, we were comparing two companies, now we're down to two, okay? And if anybody out there is familiar with California, right, or you watch HGTV like I do, I know that in this particular area he's looking at, to get a home for $1 million, you're really not getting much of a home, okay? And his franchisor potential, there's David, his potential franchisor said, well, we're gonna sell you $1 a household for any household that makes over $75,000. And I said, well, that's kind of interesting, because $75,000 in Southern California, you're still living in an apartment. And if you consider $75,000 as a dual income, that's not a lot of money. And oh, by the way, did they tell you, is that $75,000 for one person, two person? Are they a family with one or two kids? Like, what's their lifestyle, right? Well, we don't know that. Okay, so then the weirdest thing about this whole thing is he said, well, this one company I talked to said, well, if I didn't think 75,000 was the right number, I could change it. And I said, but the 75,000 is in the franchise disclosure document, right? Well, yeah. Okay. Well, how much can you change it by? Well, maybe as much as $30,000. And I said, well, that just doesn't sound right. Like, that's a lot of money and a lot of market share for them to just go, oh yeah, sure, if you want to change it by 30,000, we can do that. Something doesn't smell right. It smells like day old fish, right? And so the other option we're looking at was somebody who said, well, we can sell it to you, similar territory, and our cutoff is 95 cents a qualified household, and we qualify them at $65,000 a year in qualified household. And I said, well, that kind of makes it worse, right? We're still in Southern California. We're not far away. Banana, chiquita banana. And the problem there becomes, now I really have to dig into the data. So we went into a product that's called ERSI, and they do all tapestry segmentation. The problem, once you start looking up tapestry segmentation, is talk about going down the rabbit hole. I spent hours on this yesterday. I think I was supposed to be doing some other marketing for my company. It did help me because I found out a lot about my neighborhood, and where it helped was that I was getting ready to do some supplemental marketing in some direct mail postcards. And I had gone on the post office website and I looked at, there's something really cool in there that tells me how many apartments are in the zip codes and on the postal carrier routes that I would hit in doing every door direct mail. Well, then I looked at this tapestry segmentation and it said, oh, hey, guess what? In this particular zip code, 35% of your market share, these people are soccer moms and they have 2.5 kids and they have pets. And oh yeah, by the way, am I boring? Oh my God, he fell asleep on me. By the way, not only will they buy maid service, but they also have their lawns cut professionally. So my point with all this data that I've just dumped in your laps is that don't just take 2 or 3 data points and think that that is enough to go and buy a franchise. Just because that's the amount of data that your franchisor is giving you, don't think that's the only research that you need to do. There's a lot more data out there, and it really depends on how far you dig to determine what kind of business you think or you find is best suited for the territory that you're looking for. And when you get your business, it certainly helps you determine how you best need to market to that territory. Those are my words of wisdom for the week.
And it is an abyss. It keeps on going until you reach China.
It's so true. It's so true. This was just so interesting to me. And the amount of data, I mean, the crazy thing is, if you've watched The Social Dilemma or any of those other stories about how the internet stalks you, I mean, how do you know that I read HGTV magazine, right? It told me but the percentage of people in my neighborhood that are most likely to go to Panera Bread. Oh my God, did you see that? I have a crab on my head. My Twitch kids are going to be saying, "Hey mom, did you know you had a crab on your head today?" So they tell me, it tells me the percentage of people who go to Panera, who eat at Chili's. It's like, how do you know that? They're stalking me online.
No, what I think is creepy is we're talking here in the house about a product, a toaster oven, and all of a sudden I go on Google and there's toaster ovens on the second panel.
Do you have a Google Assistant or Alexa? Because I go to bed at night and my Alexa's going do-do-do, and I'm like, I'm not talking to you. Why are you listening?
Yeah.
I'm not talking to you. And my kids the other day said something about Alexa, blah, 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 blah. And she said, and then someone said, I hate you. And they're talking to each other, right? And she's like, I'm sorry. Did I do something wrong? And I'm like, she's listening to us.
Yeah. Or I didn't understand that. Can you repeat that?
Right. I know. Hey, so David, why don't you tell me, what do you think about this topic? I mean, I know you got cut off, and so I'm really sorry about that.
Topic of Alexa?
Oh, no. I shared with everybody about the conversation we had this morning about putting 2 Starbucks in an area that, yes, you have the population density, but maybe they're lower to mid-range incomes of apartments, right? Like people would rather have Dunkin' Donuts, and the whole getting to know your territory beyond just household value and income. Yeah,
the territory is key. And I'm not sure where I got cut off or where my internet, my connection went kaput. But the one thing I did want to say and mention is there's a huge difference between the approaches a newer chain, newer franchise, or takes in a more mature market. And so, for instance, the newer ones, I mean, the franchisees have to be aware where they are kind of in the food chain, so to speak. And what I mean by that is, if it's a new franchisor that really wants to get up and going, they're going to be more aggressive. They're going to be, they're going to want to get to critical mass and density quickly. So they might put locations too close together, maybe overbuild, a territory, by mistake, more so than more mature chains. So one of the things that happened is, as the chain I was involved with evolved, is it got to the point where if somebody wanted to put, because we're pretty built out and pretty mature, if someone wanted to add a location somewhere, their surrounding franchisees had to be notified. And if one of us had a concern about that, we can voice the concern, and then it goes to a process to see if that's a viable, they do studies and everything else to see if it's viable or if it would impact other franchisees. That was not the case early on, that's for sure. Everybody was just grabbing locations and building. Well, and that creates animosity between owners. And I think the fact that they allowed you some kind of a process to say, ooh, you know what, I don't really think that that's a good idea, and this is why. I think that says a lot about the franchisor for giving you that opportunity to speak up.
you know. What do you think, Ray? I mean, obviously we kind of come from the same organization that shared a lot of that data with us coming in. I mean, did that change the way you?
No, I don't trust the data. And I'll give you an example. I'll give you an example. So everybody in the office complains about, the bills and not having enough money. And so they walk in every morning with their cup of $6, $7 coffee, and then they go and order out lunch every day. So they're spending, I don't know, I'm going to roughly say $15 a day on food, but then they're constantly complaining about how, the bills they can't pay. And
you're talking about your office, right?
I'm talking about my office, but that's in general.
Yes.
I think a lot of people do that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm beginning to wonder how accurate is the data.
Well, but I think that's more about a lifestyle choice, because a lot of times I pull up in my, and it is a matter of what people prioritize, right? So I pull up in my parking lot and I go, man, my girls are driving nicer cars than I do. Right? Like, seriously.
They do.
And even when I ran a big box store, I made great money and my cashiers drove nicer cars. And I know how much money they made. And their nails were done. And I was like, damn.
Yeah.
Now they lived at home with mom and dad, right?
Yeah, well, yeah.
But that's where they chose to put their money. So the question is, when you see things like that, I always ask myself, like, okay, but so what are they giving up? Now, I know in a lot of those cases, my girls, they choose to live in apartments with maybe 2 or 3 different family members.
Yeah.
Okay, I get it. That's how they want to spend their money. But I agree with you. And there are times when I lived alone and I had Starbucks every day. And one day my girlfriend came to me and she goes, do you know that you spend $225 a month on Starbucks coffee? And I went, are you sure? She's like, I'm the accountant, remember? And I'm like, oh, well, I didn't really ask you to tell me that, did I? And she's like, no, but I'm your friend and I'm telling you, you need to cut back. And sometimes you just don't think about it, right?
But that's only what, $8 a day? So that's what, 2 cups of coffee?
Yes. And then I bought a Keurig.
So you went from, okay, so polluting the environment with all the Keurig cups.
I know. But I do have the little cup that I can fill. But then that brings a whole nother thing. Do I buy the beans or do I buy the grounds? And then,
all right. So from a coffee snob, I do prefer the beans because there's nothing better than the fresh smell of ground beans. It just kind of permeates the air in the office and it makes it really good.
But do you freeze the beans?
No, I don't. But even that, I've gone over to the point of it's too much of a pain in the rump to continually grind the beans. So I just buy the, already ground and, it's nice and fresh.
But see, this is like a tapestry report to my point, right? So if I were going to buy a coffee shop, I would want to know all of this information, right? Or say I wanted to invent this Keurig thing that I buy for $15 and then, or I was going to be a bean grower for coffee or roaster, right? I need to know, like, what is my market? It goes beyond, right?
Just like today's news, you got to take it with a grain of salt. You can't look too deeply into the, because like you go down the abyss. You try to you try to analyze this information too deeply, and you're really kind of wasting your time. Because I think in generalities they could be, you look at the way city planners are trying to plan cities today. They're trying to mix the population between incomes. So that you have some apartments with some condos and some nice homes in neighborhoods. And this is, a great idea. So what does that do to the zip code, though? It kind of dilutes all the information you have.
It does.
So it's, it is what it is. But like I say, you can't, from my opinion, you take a look at it and you say, okay, that's nice. Now I know I should probably send my advertising dollars to this zip code and maybe not that zip code. But
Well, that's why we pay guys like Fred.
yeah, exactly.
Because then Fred's job is to say, okay, within this zip code, these particular carrier routes are retired people on fixed incomes, and they need big coupons. And these people over here have a lot of money, but just no time. And they don't need coupons. They just need to see that you sanitize and disinfect, right? I mean, Fred, you have a big job to do.
I know.
Let's just, and then Fred has to decide, right? He has to know that maybe the older people, they're not that tech savvy. So they need postcards. And then people like Dave, he's pretty tech savvy. So he needs to get stalked on the internet, right?
That's right.
So really, Fred probably has the funnest job of all of us.
Yeah, and he enjoys it.
Well, that's why he's always dancing. He's always dancing, Fred. Always got to dance. So we should probably let our sponsors have a commercial so they can pay the bills and keep Fred's lights on. And then we should come back and talk about some more about this tapestry thing, because, you know, I think not too long ago, we talked about some sandwich shops that cannibalize themselves and are really kind of, without mentioning names and brands, they're kind of in bad shape. And I would like to talk about that just a little bit, and then about some other franchise segments that have had to be, there are other segments out there that have to be very careful of cannibalization. So Freddie, are you ready to cue us up on some commercials?
I am. I was just thinking about, could I find pictures of cannibals and put them above your head?
Ew. That's okay.
I was looking for zombie apocalypse stuff earlier today. Couldn't find any good zombie videos, so you're saved that for this week. And with that, we'll go into our commercial.
Hey, franchise owners, how's your local marketing? Do you feel like you could use some help keeping up with your social media posts and comments and reviews? Do you wonder if you could be doing more to attract local customers? Are you able to identify new move-ins to your local area? At Westvyne, we help franchisees like you reach more local customers through digital marketing. With daily monitoring, creative content, and ad placement, and customer data intelligence, we'll get your business in front of the people who want your products or services. We also work with franchisors who need an agency to handle the digital marketing for all of their locations. If you're ready to reach more local customers, give us a call at 805-265-5440 or visit us at westvyne.com. That's 805-265-5440 or westvyne.com.
The Franchise Woman is a bi-monthly digital magazine that empowers women as they navigate the franchising industry by providing relevant news, tools, advice, and inspiration. We are a resource for women who are seeking to own their own businesses, improve their existing businesses, find creative solutions, and take advantage of franchise opportunities. We feature women in the business who best exemplify our ideals and have something to teach our readers. In addition to our exclusive articles relating to the female entrepreneur, we also feature brands that are geared for women. Women have become the fastest growing sector in business ownership and have become a powerful, influenceable force fueling the economy. The Franchise Woman will give you the news that is relevant to you to help you navigate the path of successful franchise ownership. By women, for women, and about women. We are the Franchise Woman. Join us today at www.thefranchisewoman.com.
Pretty cool sound effect, wasn't that? Yeah.
Well, you know what I always say. I've never been a Trekkie.
At least you got that one right last week.
You know why? Because I had this ex-husband once. And we went to Universal Studios, and I was such a good person, at least that day, that I actually allowed them to dress me up in a Star Trek suit.
Oh, wow.
And do this whole Star Trek thing, you know, we had to get pictures. It was torture. It was, never have I liked Star Trek. And, you know, it was those suits that had like those like V things on them, and you had to go on this like fake set like you were in the control room, and I had to listen to that stupid laser sound, and I think it was just stuck in my head. Is that a minion on my head? Oh,
Yes.
he's so cute. I kind of like the maid minion myself, but that's okay, Fred. So anyway, so we talked about those sandwich shops. Remember a while back actually on the show, and David, you weren't there, but there were a couple really popular ones that have really struggled, and I met some super nice people that are currently involved with some very popular sandwich shops, and they're just saying how difficult it is right now because they just opened so many shops so close together. And I think we do have a brand that we could talk to, because really they're not even in business anymore, right? Is the Q1 out of business now? They're gone?
Yes, the original setup, the original ownership group is gone. I believe somebody had purchased the rights to it, and the last I looked, and it's been several years, was there's a handful still operating.
Okay. And I loved Quiznos. I'll just throw that out there. I loved Quiznos.
Quiznos was incredible. It's a shame because that
is
an incredible product, and should be the number one segment. It's number one choice in that segment, but they're not around.
Yeah, it's really too bad. Talk about brand dilution and cannibalization. Really, it's too bad. But so I used to work for this big box store, and it was interesting because every time we would open a new store, the stores around it would always freak out because we're like, oh my God, there goes our sales plan now, right? Because they would set our sales plan, and then it didn't always get adjusted until the next year. And we'd always be like, great, no bonus this year because the store 5 miles down the road or whatever would no longer, we wouldn't bonus because the next store would be open and we would be cannibalized. So for people who don't know what that means, it's not eating each other. That's not what we mean by cannibalization. Fred, yeah, I realize that not everybody knows what that means.
What kind of sandwiches are they serving?
Yeah,
it's people. Soylent Green. It's people. Sorry.
Oh God, this went so wrong. So really what cannibalization is it is eating, but of sales dollars, right? Would you say, Dave, that's a good definition of it?
That's exactly it. And it's tricky. I'm going to be honest with you, it's tricky in a lot of different ways. Let's go use Subway. Everybody knows Subway. What's tricky about that is when Fred DeLuca opened up his first Subway, as the story goes, didn't do that well. Right. So he opened one up basically right across the street, catty corner on the corner, and gave the appearance that, wow, this is really growing. It's real popular. They just opened up another one, and that's what kicked off that whole chain. So it's kind of tricky, but here's, and so you could say, wow, that was really risky, and it was, but it worked out because he had a larger plan, in mind for that. A lot of times when we talk about, overcrowding or cannibalization, we're talking about I'm a franchisee, then you buy one too close to me and you're hurting me. But the hidden part, and this has happened to people I know, and even to us a little bit, one that we opened up relatively close to another one, is as an owner, maybe you buy a market, right? And you can have 5 locations within this market. And you're required by the franchisor, you have to open one every, whatever the schedule is, every 9 months you have to have one open. So you're just popping in locations, and if you're not strategic about it, you could cannibalize yourself. You can take a location that's extremely profitable, open one up relatively too close, split the market, and have 2 stores doing substandard sales, and you're losing money in both. So it's not just you're protecting against other franchisees coming in and cannibalizing your market. You have to be careful that you don't cannibalize yourself and take a profitable one and have 2 mediocre ones. So it's a tricky and delicate balance. And you're going to get, if you signed a multi-unit or a market type agreement, you're going to get pressure from the franchisor because you're going to have a development schedule you have to adhere to. Mm-hmm. And they might say, hey, this location's good, blah, 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 open it, and now you're struggling with both of them. I've seen it happen.
So,
Wow.
David, how do you make sure that that doesn't happen? I mean, we know there's a lot of franchises out there. Let's just take somebody like a McDonald's or Dunkin' Donuts. They're great franchises, but we know they all require their owners to open multiple units. How do you think they do it? I mean,
if I were, it's funny for me to answer this because I did the opposite, right? I was always
Right.
in the beginning of chains that were starting. The best advice I could give is speak to other franchisees, especially if it's a mature chain or a growing chain. But maybe speak to multi-unit. Hey, how were you treated? What was the approach? Did they put pressure on you? What was your development schedule? Because the development schedules can be negotiated, or they should be able to be negotiated, because there's a layer of unpredictability in those development schedules because you don't know if the proper locations are going to become available within that time. And some franchisors don't care. And then they'll penalize you along the way if you're missing your development schedule deadline. So that has to be done up front in your negotiations to make sure, what are my penalties if I'm opening up a multi-unit, a development agreement? If I'm opening up a single one, what protections do I have against other people coming in? What's my territory? Do I have it outlined? When I first started, the territories were completely outlined. But again, as a novice, that may or may not mean much, because somebody could put one right on the border of your so-called territory and grab a big chunk from across your border into your area. So it just takes some market analysis, some territory analysis, some real good thought going through it, and some cooperation with your franchisor. But if there's an opportunity to speak with franchisees that are already in the situation that you want to get into, that conversation has to be had, or you're wasting a valuable resource.
Yeah, totally. Ray, I know that initially, when we talked with Mario, one of the other verticals he talked about was fitness centers and things. Do you foresee that fitness centers would be one that could potentially cannibalize each other, say like these little small gyms and things?
I think something like a fitness center falls in the same type of category as a QSR. In other words, people are looking for convenience, and they're not, when you're wanting to go out to dinner, you want to go out to a big restaurant with a nice deep menu of really good food. But for lunch, you want to go down the street and you want a quick sandwich. And when you want to go work out, you want to work out down the street. You don't want to travel several miles. So it's sort of the same thing. You're probably better off opening up a bunch of small fitness shops and a bunch of small sandwich shops, as opposed to, one big one.
Yeah.
That's the way I would look at it.
My daughter's in the fitness business industry, and she doesn't own it right now. She is a manager of one, and they opened in a relatively new center in a relatively developing new market. And it's going to take time for that to build, because you need the density. I mean, it really is a numbers game in that case.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting too, because there seems to be a lot of, there's so many new brands popping up. Like, it took me forever. I drove past this Spenga and I kept going, what the heck's a Spenga? And then finally I'm like, oh, it's spin and yoga. And see, and I forget what the other one was. Spin, yoga, and something else. But and then there's Orange Theory, and then there's so many different gyms, and they all kind of specialize in something else. And so it's a big market. There's a lot of convenience to them, but it's a matter of how much is too much. I don't know the answer to that. That's not my segment, right? Like, I'm lucky if I work out ever.
I think there's so many of them because of it gives everyone a reason to wear yoga pants.
Okay, so I am a huge proponent of that. Hey, sorry, not sorry. Today I'm in my flannel pants.
There you go. Well, that's next. Somebody listening. All right, there you go.
Yeah.
Flannel yoga pants. I know there's fleece, but let's go with the flannel.
Well, so the only reason, okay, so truth be told, like today was a really bad day, and so I didn't even get my shower until like right before the show, and then I'm like, okay, it's a snowy day. It's a day I'm gonna do nothing but relax. I'm like Ray, who's like, I'm gonna put on my snow pants. I'm gonna get on the snowmobile. I'm gonna go sledding after this, right? I'm like, oh no, I'm starting the fireplace. I'm not doing anything today. I'm gonna, order Instacart groceries. That's the kind of day I'm gonna have.
I'm waiting for the snow to pile up so I can get out my new snowblower and have some fun.
I put on my wine o'clock sweatshirt, my flannel pants, and I'm in for the night. I got on my slippers already. I'm done. And I declared war on the snow. This year, my goal is to never do the snow, have all my boys do it this year.
You can curse the snow and the cold all you want, but it never goes away.
Comes back
the idea is that I go away. I don't stay.
That's the only recourse you have. You have to go away.
It's okay. It's okay. I don't want to like go away. I just want to oops. Oh my goodness, the Cookie Monster's here. I just want to go somewhere warm. Like David, he chose the right thing to do.
My decision was which route I was going to take to ride my bike today, just to get
out. Oh, man. All right, so let's go back to defining tapestries. Somewhere on there is probably like the guy who just moved to Florida who rides his bike every day. Like this 10% of your population's hardest decision is which way to ride his bike. Right?
Yeah.
So Ray, tell me, really, you think like the tapestry thing is not for real? It's too much data?
Well, here's an example. Our franchise has changed the parameters on that so many times that, what is a qualified household? Oh, we changed the parameters. Well, you just gained 40,000 households. Congratulations. And then a couple of months later, they say, oh, we changed the parameters of qualified household. You just lost 30,000 qualified homes. So how many do you have?
Right. And now that's a really good point but the question is, did they change it because the demographic change? Did they change it because they realized they were wrong? Like, I never really got a good explanation as to like why they changed it.
And what's really interesting, it doesn't matter. Unless you're buying some more territory today versus yesterday, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I suppose that's true. It helps me to know. So if I were to go to, say, Arizona, right? Let's say I'm going to Arizona and I'm going to open up a company now, or Florida, right? I do kind of want to know, am I dealing with a segment of the population that's on a fixed income? Or am I dealing with a segment of the population that has some extra cash to play with? Yeah. Because depending on the type of business I'm going to open, if I want some swanky shop, right? Or let's say I'm opening a cannabis enjoyment lounge. Okay. Like that's probably not where I'm going to open I'm not going to open a Bud's place where it's a retirement. I know you're looking for your hat, aren't you? I see that. Mine's in the other room too. I wore it the other day. I'm probably not going to put that in, well, depends on how progressive they are. I'm probably not going to put that in a community where it's 65 and older and everybody's on a fixed income, right? Unless they're all in a lot of pain and believe in that. I'm probably going to put it in a more kind of urbanite, more trendy neighborhood. That's what I would think, right? I'm probably not going to put it in a super conservative neighborhood. I'm probably going to put it more in a liberal neighborhood, right? So I would want to know that about the type of business that I'm buying. I don't know, David, what do you think? What would you?
It could be tricky. I mean, don't forget, when you're pushing up in that 65 plus, I mean, they came from the 70s, so it could be
that's true.
Flashback city for them.
Oh, yeah, good point. Oh, I missed the mark on that one.
And if they were in California, who do you think to find the medical marijuana dispensaries? It was all those old coots 30 years ago.
You know, that is exactly why I need a tapestry to tell me those things. Left to my own devices, I would miss the mark.
Yeah, I would take as much data. I think it's just like anything else. You take the data and
do what you want.
And do what you want, but take the data and at least try to build a framework around it. I mean, but I think anytime you just rely solely on just data without kind of getting out, driving the market, talking to people, understanding the market itself, what you're doing with regardless of whatever business it is, I'm kind of like Ray there. I don't think I could just take that and go, okay, this makes sense. I'm going. This is it. I have to kind of touch it, feel it, see it myself.
Yeah. And you have to take data from many different points. You can't just
totally.
A couple of points.
But you should never fly totally blind either, right? And really, when the data point they give me is that a qualified household in Southern California is $75,000. Come on now.
Are you kidding? Those people are at $75,000 in California. They're living in the stream beds.
Yeah, that's minimum wage.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, $75,000 in Southern California. Come on. Now, maybe in Arkansas, maybe that's good money there, or in Oklahoma.
Wisconsin.
I don't know.
Mississippi.
Wisconsin. Yeah. I mean, but you can't live in Southern California and expect to have maid services weekly or alternate, every 2 weeks for $75,000. I just think that in situations like that, we need to be more diligent in our research. And that's the thing. I think that with Pillars of Franchising and our mentorship program, those are some of the things that we are trying to make sure folks who are looking to buy a franchise, people who want to go into business, our goal here is to make sure that we step back and say, hey, have you thought of, did you check, have you talked to, did you consider? Not to tell people that the franchise is or isn't going to work. That's not our jobs, right? We're not going to say buy this, buy that. We want you to do what you want to do, right. But it has to be eyes wide open, right?
Yeah.
And example, I've had somebody tell me, oh yeah, I've got this person who told me that they can rewrite the whole FDD for X amount of money. Not the whole FDD, but a significant part of the FDD. And I said, that's very interesting because I've never ever heard of anybody that can rewrite a significant portion of the FDD. That's why franchisors have lawyers when they write those FDDs. They're not negotiable 99% of them, right, of the FDD itself. There's a couple portions that you might be able to ask permission for, in maybe you'll get a few variances in there, but they're not designed to have nuances throughout them, right?
Yes, they're not sent out as a starting point for negotiations.
Right.
This
right.
Is what it is.
I don't know. I just think that, if you're looking to buy a business, if you're looking to buy a franchise, you always need to know that, we're here to help you. Certainly, we're free of charge, right? We just want to have a good time. I think it's so interesting for me, and I don't know about you too, but learning about all these different people out there, and we've made such great connections. I was telling my dad today, I'm like, man, we've got lawyers, we've got accountants, we've got franchisors, franchisees. It's like we've got funding resources, we've got CPAs, we've got real estate people. I'm like, who do we not have in terms of resources to talk to? And so if you're listening to the show and you wonder like, well, what about this? Dude, put it in the chat. Well, if we don't know the answer right off the top of our head, we got somebody in the Pillars Resource Bank. We can find the answer for it. I mean, it's really been awesome. And we've got some great franchisors out there that we're working with tons of brands that if you're kind of up in the air of what you're looking for, we can help you figure out something that sounds good to you, fits your lifestyle, fits the budget that you have in mind, right? If you don't like talking to me, you can talk to Ray or Dave. If you don't like us, well, there's always Fred. Who knows what Fred will tell you?
So
Right?
He'll tell you anything you want to hear.
Yeah. What do you want to hear today? Fred will tell you.
Fred will tell you something now. That today is our third anniversary. Today is the third anniversary of the start of Pillars of Franchising. Our first show was
3 years.
3 years. Our first show was February 2nd, 2018. So
wow, did you purposely keep that a secret?
No. In fact, last year, if you remember watching last year's show, we started the show with a big second year anniversary. This year, I figured we'd wait till the end and see who mentioned it. No one did.
I was going to say, damn, we all failed that test.
You know, when you have fun, time just flies by.
That's right.
I really enjoy doing this show.
Me too. I'm glad you guys invited me.
Yeah, absolutely. And Dave too.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
I mean, what the heck else do we have to look forward to on a Thursday?
That's right. Snowball.
Well, I'm not going to go there, but.
Oh, yeah. Okay, listen. You're a newlywed, so that doesn't count.
And actually, in that point, Ray's video, you can watch it on the Pillars of Franchising show. It's still featured, but he keeps getting views on the wedding. So you want to watch Ray get married, you can watch it on the Pillars of Franchising site. In fact, I recommend everyone go there and watch it just because, like I said, it's our third anniversary today. Ooh.
You do need a little bit of a tissue, though. It is very sweet.
It is.
Ray, is it how is the third month anniversary for you? Or how long has it been now already?
December.
We married December 20th.
Oh, it's December. Okay.
Yeah. So.
Well, congratulations. That's all.
Thank you. Made it that far, huh?
You're rounding the corner.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Buying a franchise is a really exciting thing to do, and it's not nearly as scary as people think it is. I mean, it's scary. I mean, you're only putting your whole life and everything you've ever earned, every red penny on the line. But I mean, aside from that, it could be a lot scarier if you're going out on your own, right? I mean, at least you're buying into a system that's been defined and in most cases proven.
Yeah.
I can't echo that enough. I mean, don't reinvent the wheel. You're buying the system for a reason, and just go get in there and start operating to the best of your ability using their system. You know, it's not going to run itself. But yeah, I mean, again, just like with any, like you said, Kristin, just like with any business, though, it cuts off a lot of the steps, but there are still very important steps that you need to be aware of.
Right? Yeah. Well, the best part about owning a business is the fact that your life and your family is in your hands. Mm-hmm. That's not to say that there are outside things that can affect it. It's how you deal with those outside things that is more in your control than it is if you have a job.
Yep, absolutely.
Totally. Wouldn't do it any other way.
Yeah, if you run your own business, you can decide, maybe we should do a podcast, live internet radio show on franchising. No one will listen, but we'll do it anyways. Holy shit, people are listening. Oh my God, we better do more.
Yeah.
3 years later, we're doing.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, let's do this mentor thing. Let's see what goes on there. Oh, let's do
how many shows have we done? What's 3 times 52?
Well, okay, so it depends on how you look at it. If you want to talk interviews, we're actually over 150 interviews because of in the early days, you know, you and I would do sometimes 2 or even 3 guests, and then if you count some of the women in franchising shows, I still remember the one we had 8 female guests because that's when we started using Zoom.
Pull your hair out.
Yeah, that's when I went much grayer and much balder. So we've got somewhere over 150 plus guests. And then we're right at about the 145 show mark because there were a couple of guests couldn't make it, the Great Shell Beach power outage, and if I remember right, the Great Shell Beach power outage was the day that caused you to get attacked by the dog.
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah. I went to walk Daisy's dog. Why I didn't have my dog with me, I'm not sure, but I went to walk her dog, and he was doing his business, and all of a sudden this pit bull comes and attacks the dog, and I beat the pit bull, and he just looked at me, oh, that feels good. It's like a massage for him. And well, it ended well anyway. Daisy's dog survived.
Yeah, but if you just sued the guy, we could have.
No.
Yeah,
I could. Why? He paid the hospital bills.
But if he had sued the guy, we could have gone on Judge Judy, and you could have said, I'm the co-host of Pillars of Franchising, and we could have gotten it out to all 10, 20, 30, 40 million of her viewers. I mean, a golden chance at viral marketing, and
oh well.
Oh well. Hey, you take your marketing where you can, folks.
Yeah.
Take Daisy's dog back out there, see what happens.
Yes.
Might not be lucky the second time.
All right. On that note,
On
folks.
that note, yeah.
We'll say goodbye. We'll be back next week with hopefully a guest next week, more interesting discussions, and starting our 4th year. This is